Liam stood in the council chamber, his posture straight, his hands folded lightly in front of him. The room was enormous, with high ceilings that shimmered in colors Liam could not name. The alien counselors sat in their designated seats, a strange mix of shapes and forms, each radiating authority and quiet suspicion. Some had multiple eyes, others had limbs that moved independently from their bodies, yet all of them shared a similar sense of curiosity mixed with arrogance. They looked at him as though he were a simple creature, harmless and predictable. Liam smiled faintly. Humans had always been underestimated, and that underestimation was their secret advantage. He could feel Mara's presence behind him, moving with calm efficiency among the human delegation. She had coordinated countless supply chains, fleet deployments and diplomatic missions, yet she moved like a shadow, silent, precise, unseen until her work was complete. The council's leader, a tall, luminescent being named Rylock, leaned forward, its many eyes narrowing. "You have come to discuss the trade agreements, yes?" it said, its voice echoing in the chamber like a low wind through hollow metal. "We expect the humans to follow standard procedure. You will provide your schedules, your fleets, your resources as promised." Liam inclined his head slightly. "We will, as always, work with the council. Everything is in order." The council murmured among themselves. A few scoffs floated across the room. It was almost comical to Liam, the way they believed humans could be controlled by expectations and rules. They had always assumed that humans were predictable, an obedient, manageable species. That assumption had cost them nothing yet, but soon, it would cost them everything. Without a word, without any warning, the humans had already begun the process of leaving. Every fleet that had been assigned to council stations, trade hubs, and exploration posts was quietly slipping away from the known routes. No messages were sent. No transmissions were left behind. Every departure was coordinated to appear as routine, though in reality it was a flawless retreat. Mara moved swiftly among the delegation, issuing small hand signals and adjustments to Liam's fleet. Her calm presence masked the enormous orchestration happening across the galaxy. Every fleet captain, every logistics officer, and every human colony understood their part. By the time the council even realized what was happening, it was too late. The humans were gone. On the third day, the council began to notice the gaps. Ships that had been expected to dock never arrived. Messages that should have been answered remained silent. The council chambers were filled with tense whispers and rising panic. "Where are they?" Rylock asked again, this time louder, its multiple eyes darting from one counselor to another. "Why have the human fleets not responded?" No one had an answer. It was a silence that burned in the chamber, a growing realization that something was wrong. Humans, who had been considered easy to manage, had disappeared without a trace. Back on a hidden command station, Liam and Mara observed the council through secure surveillance channels. From their vantage point, the galaxy looked different. The alien fleets, usually coordinated with precision, were now scattered, searching, uncertain. They did not realize the humans had left intentionally, leaving no trail to follow. It was a quiet, invisible lesson in power. Mara adjusted a console, her fingers moving quickly over the controls. "Every fleet is on schedule," she said softly. "Every colony has disengaged. They won't know what hit them until it's too late." Liam nodded, keeping his expression calm. He could almost hear the council's thoughts, the panic rising as each missing ship was accounted for. They had underestimated humans for centuries, believing that survival depended on control, on dominance. Humans had learned long ago that true strength was often invisible, subtle, and deliberate. Across the galaxy, human ships slid through hyperspace corridors with ease. No warnings, no confrontations, no broadcasts. Each vessel moved as part of a grand design, leaving behind only a sense of absence. Trade stations went unmanned, supply routes halted, and alien crews began to scramble in confusion. In one distant sector, a council fleet commander named Zelthar checked his monitors repeatedly. "This is impossible," he said aloud. "All human traffic should be here. They are scheduled for maintenance, for trade, for inspection. Where have they gone?" There was no answer. Only the quiet hum of his ship and the unsettling feeling that something beyond his understanding was unfolding. On another station, a young analyst named Eli observed the anomalies in movement patterns. "It's deliberate," he murmured to his assistant. "They are leaving, but not running. Every route, every schedule, every colony, they've disengaged methodically. It's like a demonstration." Back in the hidden human command, Liam and Mara shared a glance. "They'll figure it out eventually," Mara said. When they do, it will already be too late. Days passed and the council's panic only grew. Meetings were held, but no solutions were found. The humans had done nothing violent, nothing threatening, yet the absence alone caused fear, confusion, and disruption. Systems that relied on human logistics faltered. Trade disputes escalated because no one could manage the flow of goods and information. Colonies that had depended on human expertise began to struggle. In a council chamber far from human observation, a voice spoke nervously, breaking the silence. They left without warning, without negotiation, without communication. And now everything is falling apart. Rylock, the council leader, swiveled its head, eyes wide with alarm. We underestimated them. We assumed they would act predictably, follow instructions, and comply with expectations. We were wrong. Meanwhile, humans continued to depart quietly, leaving no trace of their movements. Every decision had been calculated, every withdrawal precise. They were not fleeing, they were teaching the galaxy a lesson in restraint and capability. Liam walked along the observation deck of the hidden station, watching the stars streak by in hyperspace tunnels. They think strength is force, he said quietly to Mara. They don't see it, but absence is stronger than any weapon. Mara nodded. And patience is sharper than any blade. In the alien council, debate raged endlessly. Envoys argued over fleets, over supplies, over protocols. Each effort to trace the humans failed. Every attempt to predict their return proved futile. The council realized only slowly that humans had acted on their own terms, and the galaxy itself was paying the price for underestimating them. By the fifth day, the truth began to settle in. The humans were gone, not because of fear, not because of threat, not because of war, but because they had chosen to leave. The council could neither stop them nor compel them. And that realization, a quiet, unsettling understanding, was more frightening than any attack could have been. On the human station, Liam and Mara watched the galaxy from their concealed vantage points. They knew the lesson had begun. The aliens would adjust eventually, but the humans' absence had already demonstrated the power of choice, planning, and foresight. And as the stars streaked past the observation deck, Liam smiled faintly. The council would speak of this moment for years. They would try to understand it, to recover from it, to rebuild from the mistakes they had made. But for now, humans had left without a word, and the galaxy would never forget it. The moment humans vanished, the galaxy fell into quiet chaos. Alien fleets moved frantically through the void, trying to cover trade routes, patrol borders, and maintain control of the stations humans had once run effortlessly. Ships that had relied on human coordination collided, miscalculated docking procedures, or found their navigation systems confused. Supplies stopped reaching colonies. Communication lines faltered. Routine deliveries were late, sometimes never arriving. The council scrambled to act. Envoys were sent to stations, fleets were redirected, and meetings were called around the clock. Every counselor had a theory, every faction blamed the others. The most repeated word in those chambers was panic. Ella, a young council aide, had been observing the disruptions with growing unease. She sat quietly in the corner of the massive chamber, her eyes scanning reports as they appeared on floating displays. Unlike most of her colleagues, she did not shout or argue. She simply watched, noticing patterns that others overlooked. The humans are not fleeing, she said softly to her assistant, a small alien with 3 flexible arms. This isn't chaos from fear. They're leaving by design. Every ship, every fleet, every colony, disappearing in a way that is precise, planned, and coordinated. They are testing us. Her assistant blinked with its 4 eyes and made a series of clicking sounds. Testing? Surely that is improbable. They are a simple species. They do not plan like this on a galactic scale. Ella shook her head. You think they are simple because they don't look complicated. But look at the data. Every system they controlled is now empty, and yet there's no sign of panic from their side. No distress signals. No messages asking for help. This is deliberate. Others nearby overheard her comment and laughed dismissively. Testing us? One counselor scoffed. They've abandoned trade stations, sure, but it's probably a glitch in their systems. This is not strategy. It's disorder. Let's fix it before it spreads further. But it was too late. The galaxy was already feeling the void left by humans. Mining colonies went dark. Trade hubs remained idle, and fleets that had relied on human logistics were stranded. Starports that had expected human scheduling for years now found themselves in disarray. Even simple shipments of food, water, and tools were delayed or lost. Ella continued to study the movement, or rather, the absence, of humans. Every disappearance followed a pattern, a rhythm. The humans left no messages, no warnings, and yet their absence affected every corner of the galaxy. It was subtle but effective. In every system humans had touched, their departure caused ripple effects that grew larger with every passing day. On one isolated space station, the station commander, a green-skinned alien named Aaron, banged on the console in frustration. "This is impossible," he shouted. "All human traffic should be here. Supplies, fleet support, communications, they were scheduled for today. Where are they?" No one could answer. The humans were gone, and nothing the aliens did could trace them. Their routes through hyperspace had been deliberately hidden. Every attempt to follow their movements returned empty, leaving only confusion behind. Even in the council chambers, fear began to creep in. One elder counselor, a tall being with long, spindly limbs, spoke nervously. "They left without warning. Without a message. And now, everything is failing. This cannot be accidental." A younger counselor shook his head, trying to maintain calm. "Perhaps it is. Perhaps it is just coincidence. They may have miscalculated schedules or systems failed. We cannot read human minds. Maybe it's just random chance." Ella clenched her fists, frustrated. "No," she whispered almost to herself. "It's never random. They are showing us what happens when we rely on them without understanding them. They are leaving but not because of fear. They are leaving to demonstrate strength without fighting, without conflict. And we are blind to it." Meanwhile, humans were moving steadily through the galaxy. On hidden command stations, Liam and Mara watched the reports from fleets scattered across space. Every ship, every colony, every logistics outpost operated in perfect synchronization. No one was left behind. No one faltered. And yet, to the alien galaxy, it seemed as though the humans had vanished entirely. Mara adjusted a console and checked the hyperspace lanes one more time. "Every fleet is on schedule," she said softly. "Every colony is disengaged. No mistakes. No messages. Just absence." Liam nodded, keeping his face calm as always. He could feel the council's confusion, their growing panic. They would soon realize the lesson humans were delivering, but it would take time. And in that time, the galaxy would experience what humans had always known. Absence could be more powerful than any weapon. In one sector, a fleet commander named Joran sat at his bridge, staring at a blinking monitor. He had been tracking human ships for days, and every time he thought he had found one, it vanished. He leaned back in disbelief. "It's like they don't exist anymore," he muttered. "How can a species disappear completely, and nothing is left behind?" Eli, a junior analyst in the council, examined data streams in frustration. "They're not fleeing," he said aloud. "Every fleet is following a pattern. They left by choice, not panic. They are demonstrating capability. Every system they controlled is now empty but perfectly managed. Every failure we see is because they are gone, not because they made a mistake." On the hidden human station, Liam and Mara exchanged a glance. "They'll understand soon enough," Mara said. "They'll see the void they cannot fill, and they will realize the cost of underestimating humans." In the council chambers, the panic grew. Alien leaders shouted at each other, blaming factions, fleets, and errors. No one could explain the silence of the humans. No one could locate them. And in the silence of space, humans moved like shadows, quiet, precise, invisible, and unstoppable in their absence. As days passed, the ripple effects intensified. Colonies that had relied on humans for navigation and supply chains struggled to survive. Mining operations slowed or halted entirely. Trade disputes broke out over routes humans had once maintained. Every corner of the galaxy that had once seemed stable was now uncertain, and the council realized that they were not dealing with simple mistakes. They were facing the consequences of having taken humans for granted. Ella watched in amazement, taking notes. She knew it would take time for the other counselors to understand what was happening. Humans were teaching a lesson not through aggression, not through power, but through withdrawal. By simply leaving, they had disrupted systems, tested the council, and reminded everyone of their true value. In the quiet of her office, she whispered to herself, "They are not running. They are leaving. And we are failing without them." Back in the hidden stations, Liam walked across the observation deck, looking out at the streaking lights of hyperspace tunnels. Mara joined him, and together they watched the galaxy struggle to adjust to absence. "They think strength comes from control," Liam said softly. "They don't see it, but absence is stronger than any weapon." Mara nodded. "And patience is sharper than any blade," she said. "They will learn. They always learn. Eventually." Across the galaxy, alien fleets continued to scramble. Each attempt to trace human movements failed. Every effort to stabilize the disrupted trade routes fell short. Human absence had already begun to teach a lesson that no council, no fleet, and no weapon could ever deliver. Underestimate humans at your own peril because they understand strength in ways others cannot. And in the hidden stations, Liam and Mara smiled faintly at each other. The humans' first lesson had already begun. Quiet. Unseen. Precise. The council chamber buzzed with tension. Alien leaders from every corner of the galaxy had gathered, their forms twisting and shifting in agitation. The humans were gone. Every fleet, every station, every colony humans had once run was now silent, and the council had no idea where to begin fixing the chaos. Enough, shouted an elder counselor, a tall creature with long spindly arms that waved angrily in the air. We depended on them too much. We thought we could control them, direct them, and manage them, and now everything is falling apart. Voices rose on all sides, overlapping in confusion and blame. One faction shouted about mismanagement of trade routes, another about collapsed supply chains, while a third claimed their fleets were being sabotaged by unknown forces. No one paused long enough to listen. No one realized that the real force at work was not sabotage but absence. Ella, the young aide from earlier, tried to speak. "We are missing the point," she shouted above the din, but her words were lost in the chaos. She ran her clawed hands over a console, projecting maps of the galaxy. Red dots marked failed stations, delayed fleets, and empty trade hubs. She pointed toward clusters of missing human fleets. They left. They did not fail. Every system they touched is now empty, but their absence is the message. The counselor stared at her for a moment, unsure whether to dismiss her or consider her words. The silence was brief. Arguments flared again, louder than before. Meanwhile, humans observed the chaos quietly from hidden outposts scattered across the galaxy. Noah, in charge of fleet coordination, monitored alien attempts to reorganize. He tapped on his console, analyzing patterns and tracking the council's response. "They don't realize it yet," he said to Mara, his tone calm. "We aren't fighting. We are simply gone, and look how they scramble." Mara nodded, adjusting the display to show recent trade route failures. "It's already working," she said. "Every fleet they send ends up in the wrong place. Every colony struggles to communicate. Their systems are collapsing on their own." Noah leaned back in his chair, smiling faintly. The lesson humans had planned was unfolding exactly as intended. Absence, precision, and patience were far more effective than any attack. The council had believed humans could be predicted, controlled, or forced to act, but they had never realized the simplest truth. Humans acted on their own terms, and absence itself could be devastating. Back in the council chamber, the debates reached a fever pitch. Rylock, the luminescent council leader, slammed a tentacle against the floor. "Silence," it commanded, and for a moment the chaos paused. "We must coordinate. We must fix this. We cannot allow humans to leave and remain unseen. Find them. Contact them. Restore order." The room erupted again. Counselors argued about who was to blame for each failed station. Fingers, or tentacles, were pointed at neighboring species, fleets, and even Rylock itself. Maps and holograms flickered, showing missing supply chains, disconnected colonies, and stalled mining operations. Ella ran calculations quickly. "Even if we locate one human fleet," she muttered, "it won't matter. They are everywhere and nowhere at once. They planned this. They anticipated our response. And every attempt we make only highlights our dependence on them." In a distant sector, alien fleet commanders attempted to reorganize. Ships moved in jagged patterns, trying to re-establish trade routes or patrol borders, but every plan failed. Fleet convoys collided, starports became congested, and crucial supplies never reached their destinations. It was a slow, methodical collapse, invisible yet undeniable. Back on the human observation station, Mara and Noah watched the reports in satisfaction. "Every move they make is predictable," Mara said, "because they have no idea what they're up against. They assume absence means weakness, but absence is stronger than force." Noah smiled. "They are learning a lesson they will not forget. And they won't understand it until much later." The council's chaos grew. Each alien faction tried to reorganize independently, but their plans clashed. One fleet sent to deliver supplies ended up in the same space lane as another, causing near collisions. Communications overlapped, sending conflicting orders to colonies. Even long-standing rivalries erupted into arguments over territory that humans had quietly abandoned. Eli, the young council analyst, tried to explain the situation rationally. They are not fighting us. They are not retreating randomly. They are leaving deliberately. And by leaving, they are showing us how dependent we are on them. Most counselors ignored him, too lost in panic to listen. Some laughed at the idea that a simple species could orchestrate such a perfect disruption without firing a single weapon. But the evidence could not be ignored. Every empty trade hub, every stranded fleet, every confused colony reinforced the same truth. Humans were gone, and the galaxy was struggling to function without them. In hidden corners of human-controlled space, Liam reviewed reports from distant observation posts. Notice the pattern, he told Mara. Every system they touch, every fleet they monitor fails in ways we predicted. And yet we never interfere directly. We simply step back and let the lesson unfold. Mara nodded. They'll eventually realize how wrong they were to underestimate humans. But they won't understand the full measure of it until much later. Across the galaxy, chaos became routine. Trade disputes grew violent. Starport operations failed repeatedly. Mining stations that had relied on human guidance halted entirely. Alien fleets were scattered, misaligned, and confused. And yet the humans were nowhere to be seen, moving silently through hidden corridors of space, watching the ripple effects of their departure. Rylock convened a secondary meeting, hoping to salvage some order. We must coordinate. We must find them, it said. We cannot continue like this. Arguments broke out again, louder than ever. Some counselors accused Rylock of negligence. Others blamed each other. Systems that had once been orderly were now unpredictable. One faction even proposed forcibly taking over human-controlled territories, a suggestion that was met with immediate hostility from other members. Ella remained calm in the chaos. They think this is failure, she whispered to her assistant. They think chaos means humans are weak. But it's exactly the opposite. Humans are teaching us about consequences. Every misstep, every delay, every failure, they are watching and measuring silently. And we are failing by their design. In one remote observation post, Noah made notes on fleet movements. They don't realize it yet, he said quietly. Every fleet they send, every plan they make, every attempt to restore order, it all plays right into the lesson. Absence is louder than any weapon. Mara glanced at him. And it's more permanent than any attack. They can scramble their fleets forever, but they cannot recreate the stability we have left. The council continued to bicker endlessly, but no solution came. Each plan to reorganize collided with another. Every attempt to stabilize trade, fleets, or communication failed. Even the most disciplined factions could not adjust to the sudden absence of humans. On the human station, Liam walked along the observation deck, watching the galaxy unfold. They thought control was power, he said softly. But we've shown them that absence is strength and patience is precision. They will learn it the hard way. Mara smiled faintly. And by the time they do, it will be too late to undo the lesson. As the council raged on in endless arguments, humans moved steadily, quietly, and deliberately. No warnings. No messages. No confrontations. Just absence. And in that absence, the galaxy learned, slowly and painfully, that humans were not to be underestimated. Weeks turned into months, and the galaxy had changed in ways the council had never anticipated. The absence of humans was no longer just noticeable, it had become a fundamental disruption of everything the alien civilizations relied upon. Trade routes were clogged, fleets moved in confusion, and colonies struggled to function without the precise coordination humans had always provided. Every system they had touched, every station they had managed, now faltered under the alien efforts to maintain it. In the council chambers, debate had quieted from frantic shouting to tense, measured conversation. The chaos had forced them to recognize a truth they had resisted for too long. Humans had never been simple, never predictable, and never weak. They had simply chosen not to act in ways the council expected. Eli, the young alien scholar who had observed the disappearance from afar, finally spoke aloud. They didn't fight, he admitted, his voice low, almost hesitant. They just left. And yet, we are failing without them. Other counselors looked at him, some in disbelief, some in frustration. What do you mean? Asked Rylock, its glowing eyes narrowing. They abandoned trade routes, fleets, and stations. They left everything unprotected. Surely this is weakness. Eli shook his head slowly. No. It is the opposite. They are teaching us something we did not understand. Power is not always about strength or control. Sometimes, it is about choice. They chose to leave and we are forced to face the consequences. In a hidden human command center, Lucy, a young human analyst, observed the council's struggles through secure channels. Her eyes scanned the chaotic maps of fleets, stations, and trade hubs. Every delay, every collision, every failed supply run told the same story. The council had assumed that absence was weakness, but in truth, it was the human's strongest weapon. They think power is control, Lucy said softly to her colleague Mara, who was nearby. They don't see that strength can be silent. We know it is choice. Mara nodded, adjusting a display to show the ripple effects of human absence across multiple sectors. Every system we touched fails when we step back, she said. They believed they could manage us with rules and expectations, but they are discovering that their dependency makes them weak. The council had begun to see the evidence. Envoys from distant factions reported that fleets were stuck in hyperspace corridors, unable to find safe docking routes. Supply stations went without critical resources. Communication signals between colonies overlapped or failed entirely. The intricate balance the aliens had depended on for centuries was collapsing in real time. A counselor named Vreth, who had long opposed humans, finally admitted aloud what many were thinking in silence. They are gone and we cannot fix it. Every fleet we redirect fails. Every colony we attempt to stabilize is mismanaged. They did not attack. They did not sabotage. They simply left and we are powerless without them. The chamber fell silent. The admission echoed in the halls of the council building. Weeks of frantic arguments and failed attempts to reorganize had led to this moment of clarity. Humans had not needed threats, warnings, or weapons. Their absence alone demonstrated their power more effectively than any fleet or station could. Eli looked down at the maps, his mind racing. We underestimated them for too long, he whispered to himself. We thought strength was control. We thought obedience meant predictability. But humans, they measure strength differently. They act on choice, not force. Meanwhile, human analysts across their hidden outposts watched as the lesson unfolded. Liam, the commander, stood beside Lucy and Mara, observing the council reports as they came in. They'll understand eventually, he said calmly. But they must experience the consequences themselves. That is the only way they will truly learn. Lucy pointed to a cluster of fleets struggling to dock at a distant hub. Look at them, she said. They don't realize how reliant they were on us. Every delay, every misstep, they're learning exactly what we planned. Mara leaned closer. And they will not forget it. This is patience as power. Absence as influence. Across the galaxy, alien fleets stumbled, miscalculated, and argued endlessly. Their most careful strategies collided with each other, creating new problems at every turn. No matter how advanced their technology, no matter how vast their fleets, they could not recover the order humans had quietly maintained. Every system humans had left was a reminder of their value, a value the Council had ignored for far too long. In one remote sector, a fleet commander named Theron shook its head in frustration. We cannot find them. Every attempt to re-establish routes fails. Every colony mismanages supplies. It is as though humans were the backbone of the galaxy itself, and now it has collapsed without them. Eli, watching from the Council observation room, nodded slowly. Exactly. And that is the lesson. Humans never needed to fight. They never needed to threaten. Their power was in leaving, and we are forced to recognize it. Liam, observing the reports alongside Lucy and Mara, allowed a small smile. They'll learn that strength is not always about force, he said. They'll learn that choice can be more powerful than fleets. And they'll realize it only after they feel the consequences of underestimating humans. Weeks turned into months, and slowly the Council began to accept the reality. Humans were gone, and nothing they did could reverse the disruption left in their wake. Trade hubs remained unstable. Supply chains faltered. Communication errors persisted. And yet there had been no attack, no conflict, no violence. Humans had left a void that spoke louder than any weapon ever could. Lucy watched the chaos in the reports, satisfaction quiet but steady in her expression. We don't need to act, she said. They are learning. Every mistake they make is part of the lesson. Mara nodded. And they won't understand it fully until much later. By then the lesson will be ingrained. Eli, reflecting on the months of council meetings and reports, spoke softly to a fellow scholar. Humans are not like us. They do not measure power by control or fear. They measure it by freedom, the freedom to act and the freedom to step back. And when they step back, it forces us to see the truth of our dependence. Back in the hidden human stations, Liam observed the galaxy in motion. Ships moved in confusion. Stations struggled. Communication lines crossed and failed. And yet humans were safe, organized, and in control of themselves. The lesson they had planned was complete in its early stages, subtle yet undeniable. They think control is power, Liam said quietly. But absence is stronger. Choice is stronger. And they cannot fix it because they still do not understand it. Lucy smiled faintly. And they never will fully understand. They can try, but the lesson is already taught. They cannot unlearn it. Across the galaxy, alien fleets continued to stumble, counselors continued to argue, and the weight of human absence pressed upon every civilization. Humans had not fought. They had not demanded respect. They had simply left, and the ripple of that choice had reshaped the galaxy. Eli leaned back, exhausted but thoughtful. "We will rebuild," he said. "We will learn. But we will never forget that humans showed us power can exist without violence, without control. Sometimes strength is simply the ability to choose." And in the quiet of hidden human stations, Lucy, Mara, and Liam watched the council struggle, knowing the lesson was unfolding exactly as planned. The galaxy was learning, slowly and painfully, that humans were not to be underestimated. That absence could teach more than fleets. That choice could weigh heavier than any weapon. The council had realized the truth. Humans had left and the galaxy was failing because of it. And in that realization lay the quiet, unstoppable strength of humanity. The council had realized too late that they could not control humans. Every fleet they sent, every message they dispatched returned empty-handed. The humans were gone. Not fleeing, not hiding, but leaving in a way that no alien system could trace or disrupt. Rylock, the council leader, glowed brighter than usual, a clear sign of agitation. "Send more envoys," it demanded. "Contact every fleet. Contact every colony. Bring them back. They cannot be allowed to disappear entirely." Counselors rushed to obey, sending holographic messages across the galaxy, each one polite, demanding, and desperate in turn. Diplomatic channels were flooded. Messages pleaded for explanations, offered incentives, threatened consequences, and even promised rewards. Each message received the same response: silence. In a distant sector, Commander Theron prepared a fleet to intercept human ships. Hundreds of vessels aligned along calculated hyperspace corridors. Their sensors scanned for the slightest trace of human presence. Every jump they attempted revealed only empty space. Systems that should have shown human activity were blank. The fleet commander's frustration grew with every failed attempt. "This is impossible," Theron said aloud, pacing across the bridge. "Every record shows humans were here. Yet they are nowhere. How can a species vanish completely?" Back in the council chamber, counselors argued endlessly. "We underestimated them," one alien shouted. "We thought absence meant weakness. But each failed attempt proves they are stronger than anything we imagined." Ella, the young aide who had observed the humans' departure from the beginning, stayed quiet, watching the chaos with a small, knowing smile. She knew that the council was only now beginning to see the lesson humans had been teaching all along. The lesson was not delivered through force, but through absence, planning, and precision. On a hidden human command station, Liam and Mara monitored the galaxy's response. Each failed attempt by alien fleets was logged carefully. "They keep trying," Mara said, adjusting a display to show recent fleet movements. "And every time they fail." Liam nodded. "It's exactly as we planned. They don't understand yet, but every failed effort teaches them. They are learning what happens when humans are in control and then choose to step away." Humans had made their point clearly: respect is earned by capability, not by fear or threats. The council had believed that humans could be commanded, that their obedience could be purchased, and that absence would be treated as weakness. They had been wrong. Lucy, sitting beside Mara and Liam, studied the reports from the alien fleets. "They don't realize that every fleet they send into empty space only proves our strength," she said softly. "They keep expecting us to act, but the fact that we don't respond forces them to recognize their dependence on us." Mara smiled faintly at Liam. "No one learns faster than those who are forced to survive without us," she said. "Every failure reinforces the same lesson: underestimate humans at your peril." Across the galaxy, fleets continued their futile searches. Every calculation, every hyperspace jump, every route mapped in painstaking detail failed to reveal the humans' hidden stations. Colonies that had once relied on human logistics floundered. Supply lines broke down completely. Trade disputes erupted as stations vied for scarce resources. Communication networks, once flawless under human oversight, collapsed into confusion. Rylock convened another council meeting, frustration and fear evident in its glowing form. We must understand their location, it demanded. We must restore order. But arguments erupted again. Some counselors insisted that human absence was temporary, that fleets would eventually find them. Others argued that humans were testing the council, observing their failures and teaching a lesson. Few wanted to believe it, but the evidence was undeniable. Humans were gone and no alien power could force them back. Eli, the alien scholar, watched the holographic data with a mix of disbelief and grudging respect. They do not respond, he said quietly. They are not hiding in fear. They are teaching. And every failed attempt we make proves that we rely on them more than we realized. We cannot manage without them. Even those who had resisted acknowledging human capability could no longer ignore it. Trade hubs, starports, and fleets struggled with every passing day. Every error, every collision, every missed shipment was a reminder of the humans' efficiency and foresight. And yet, humans were nowhere to be found, observing the results of their absence with patience and precision. Noah, coordinating hidden human fleets, monitored alien attempts with quiet satisfaction. They do not understand, he said to Mara. Every move they make only demonstrates their dependence on us. Every failure reinforces what we already know. Humans are capable beyond their imagination. Mara nodded, adjusting displays showing fleet patterns and resource shortages. They assumed we needed them to act. But absence is enough. They cannot control what they cannot trace. Every misstep proves it. In one sector, a council envoy reported back with a blank expression. We followed every signal. We scanned every known route. Every colony we visited confirmed no human presence. We found nothing. Back at the council, Rylok's glowing form flickered with a mixture of anger and fear. Send more envoys, it commanded. They cannot simply disappear. But no matter how many fleets were deployed, no matter how many messages were sent, the humans did not respond. Each failure echoed across the galaxy like a lesson written in the void. The council began to understand that humans had mastered not only action but restraint. They could strike if necessary, but they also understood the power of leaving and letting consequences unfold naturally. Lucy watched quietly as the reports came in. Every fleet sent to locate humans returned empty. Every attempt to communicate met silence. Every mismanaged supply line, every frustrated fleet commander, every lost shipment reinforced the lesson humans were teaching. Respect was earned through capability, planning, and intelligence, not through fear or domination. Mara turned to Liam. They will eventually understand what we are showing them, she said. But it will be a hard lesson. Absence teaches more than presence ever could. Liam nodded, his gaze steady on the reports. They have to see it for themselves. They have to experience what it means to survive without humans. Across the galaxy, alien fleets continued to search, but the humans were always one step ahead, not by action but by choice. Their hidden stations, their concealed fleets, their precise coordination ensured that humans remained completely in control, even while appearing absent. Every new failure reinforced the same truth. Humans were not to be underestimated. Their strength lay not in the fleets they commanded, nor in weapons, nor in domination, but in the ability to act, to plan, and to leave when the time was right. Every failed alien attempt was a demonstration of human capability, patience, and intelligence. As the months passed, frustration gave way to grudging respect among the alien counselors. Even those who had mocked the idea that humans could leave deliberately were forced to admit the truth. Humans were gone, but their presence, or rather their absence, was felt in every system, every fleet, and every station. Mara smiled faintly at Liam. No one learns faster than those who are forced to survive without us, she said. And every failure reinforces it. Every misstep, every delay, every lost shipment teaches the same lesson. Humans are not weak. They are not to be controlled. They are to be respected. Liam nodded, a small smile of satisfaction on his face. And they will remember it, he said. They will never forget that humans chose when and how to act. That alone is more powerful than any weapon they could muster. In the hidden human stations, humans moved silently, organized efficiently, and continued to observe the galaxy. No messages were sent. No fleets were deployed unnecessarily. The lesson was complete in its early stages. Respect is earned, absence teaches, and capability cannot be ignored. And so, every failed attempt by the aliens became part of the story humans were writing. A story of patience, intelligence, and the quiet, unstoppable power of leaving when the time was right. Years had passed since humans had quietly withdrawn from the galaxy, and the consequences of their absence were still unfolding. The alien civilizations had adapted, but the process was slow, difficult, and often painful. Trade routes that humans had managed flawlessly now became battlegrounds. Fleets collided in hyperspace, starports became clogged, and resources failed to reach the colonies that depended on them. Wars erupted over control of supply lines and strategic systems that humans had left behind without a word. The Council, which had once been confident in its ability to control and manage the galaxy, now struggled under the weight of its own overconfidence. Factions that had depended heavily on human support collapsed, unable to organize fleets, coordinate supply chains, or maintain communication networks. Entire colonies went silent, and others fell into chaos as their leaders argued over resources, routes, and alliances. In hidden human stations, Liam watched the reports quietly, his expression calm and composed. Mara stood beside him, studying the same displays of alien fleets struggling in disarray. Every failed attempt, every argument among counselors, every lost shipment was recorded carefully. Humans did not intervene unnecessarily. They allowed the galaxy to experience the consequences of underestimating them. See how they still stumble? Mara said softly. They think they are adapting, but they still don't fully understand. Every misstep is because they relied on us for far too long. Liam nodded, his gaze steady on the screens. Sometimes, he whispered, the most powerful act is leaving, and letting others face the consequences. Across the galaxy, alien fleets continued to clash in hyperspace corridors. Trade hubs that had once operated with perfect efficiency were now sites of tension, conflict, and mismanagement. Factions competed over resources that had once been distributed evenly by human coordination. Even small errors snowballed into major crises, and the Council struggled to impose order on a system that humans had maintained effortlessly. Eli, the alien scholar who had first recognized the human strategy, observed the reports with a mixture of frustration and admiration. They did not fight, he said quietly to another scholar. They did not send warnings. They simply left, and we have been paying the price ever since. In council chambers, arguments still erupted, but now they carried the weight of humility. Even the most stubborn counselors could not deny the truth. Humans had not needed weapons, fleets, or domination to assert their strength. Their absence had demonstrated something far more powerful: the ability to act on choice, to move on their own terms, and to leave consequences in their wake. Meanwhile, humans continued to watch from the shadows. Lucy, a young human analyst, reviewed the latest fleet reports. Every mistake made by alien commanders, every failed supply run, every argument over trade routes reinforced the same lesson humans had been teaching from the beginning. They did not need to intervene directly. Their presence or absence was enough. Mara turned to Liam. "Do you think they will ever fully understand?" she asked. He shook his head slightly. "Some may eventually," he replied. "But most will not. They will continue to stumble and fight, and that is part of the lesson. True strength is not always shown in action. Sometimes it is shown in restraint, and in knowing when to leave." In the outer systems, alien colonies struggled to maintain order. Mining operations slowed, trade shipments were delayed, and fleets that had once been coordinated under human supervision moved erratically. Arguments broke out over territories that humans had quietly vacated, and alliances crumbled under the strain of poor planning and mismanagement. Every mistake, every conflict, every failure was a direct result of underestimating humans and relying on their efficiency without recognizing their capability. On the hidden human observation deck, Liam watched the galaxy unfold with calm satisfaction. "Every move they make confirms what we already know," he said. "They believe they can adapt, but they cannot rebuild the systems we managed without experiencing failure. And that failure teaches more than any order or instruction ever could." Lucy smiled, pointing to a recent report of a fleet that had collided with a trade convoy. "They are learning," she said. "Even if they don't realize it, every mistake is part of the lesson. Respect is not given. It is earned. And they are learning it the hard way." Mara adjusted the holographic displays, showing the ripple effects of human absence across multiple sectors. "And they cannot undo it," she said. "Every system we touched, every fleet we coordinated, every station we managed, they will feel the consequences for years. And yet we remain hidden, observing quietly. No warning. No farewell. Just presence or absence." In one distant sector, Rylock, the council leader, sat in silence, observing reports of collapsed fleets and fractured trade networks. For the first time, it understood the magnitude of human capability. "We thought control was power," it admitted quietly to a fellow counselor. "But we were wrong. Humans have shown that strength is measured in choices, not domination. The council had finally learned what humans had always known. Absence could speak louder than fleets. Patience could outweigh aggression. Quiet observation could reveal more than forceful action. Humanity's ultimate power was not in weapons or numbers, but in the ability to act on its own terms and to leave consequences for others to face. On the hidden human stations, the atmosphere was calm but alert. Humans continued to monitor the galaxy, ensuring that nothing threatened the fragile balance they had left behind. Yet they did not interfere unnecessarily. They allowed the Council and the alien factions to navigate the consequences of their underestimation. Liam stood beside Mara, looking out at the distant stars. "Sometimes," he repeated softly, "the most powerful act is leaving. Not to escape, not to surrender, but to teach. To show others what they cannot do without you." Mara nodded, watching the flickering signals of struggling fleets across multiple sectors. "They will remember," she said. "Even if they don't admit it, they will never forget that humans act on choice, and that absence can carry more weight than any weapon." In the years that followed, the galaxy slowly adapted to the humans' absence. Some colonies recovered. Some trade routes were restored. Fleets learned to coordinate better, but always imperfectly, always with gaps that reminded them of the humans' previous role. Wars erupted occasionally, but humans only intervened when necessary, never announcing their presence, never seeking recognition. They acted like shadows, quiet, precise, and unyielding. The Council, once confident in its ability to manage the galaxy, now approached every decision with caution. They had learned humility. They had learned respect. And they had learned that humans did not need to fight to assert their strength. Every choice humans made, every absence they maintained, had left an indelible mark on the galaxy. Back in the hidden stations, Lucy, Mara, and Liam observed the slow progress of alien civilizations. Every report confirmed the same truth. Humans had shown their ultimate strength, and it did not come from aggression or force. It came from the simple, quiet act of choosing when to be present, and when to leave. As Liam whispered once more to Mara, the weight of their strategy settled between them. Sometimes the most powerful act is leaving, and letting others face the consequences. And so, the galaxy remembered, slowly and painfully. Humans had left without a word, without a farewell, and yet their lesson endured. Absence had spoken, restraint had taught, and choice had proven stronger than any weapon. The Council understood at last that humanity's true strength was subtle, patient, and unstoppable. It was a lesson written not in fleets or battles, but in silence, observation, and the quiet mastery of knowing when to act, and when to vanish.